I think when people hear that have been on that journey, on that quote unquote spiritual journey, or be on that meditation journey, the question that might come up, and perhaps you have an answer for this, is that, okay, great, I've been meditating and I've had those mini awakenings or mini satori experiences, but I then start to notice that I identify with unidentifying. I'm trying to get so close to, it's like you go layer back, but then you realize that you've attached that layer. I wonder if someone's meditating and they feel that non-attachment and they feel that they've let go, but then they start attaching to letting go, and then that brings them back to that same place. What would you do in that instance? What are your thoughts on that?
That's not letting go.
Correct.
It's like when people say, "Oh, I've surrendered, but nothing's changed." Well, you haven't surrendered then. You're
Yeah.
actually, if there is any level of attachment, you are still in your ego. You haven't actually accessed the realm beyond that. So that's what I would say, is any attachment says that you're still in identification of something. The true letting
Mm.
go, the true surrender is indescribable. It's an experience and a feeling state that I believe cannot be articulated through the human language. It's something that can't be comprehended through our current level of consciousness. So that's why when I speak to people about my spiritual awakening experience, I'm like, I can only say so much, because the rest of it is something that you will never understand unless you experience it. It is indescribable. And I think that's the point of it, because the human language exists at a certain level of consciousness. And, the other densities or dimensions beyond that, there is no language. So language is beautiful and expansive. It's also a limitation by nature, and limitation doesn't mean a bad thing. It's just limited so that we can understand each other. But beyond
Yeah.
that level of, verbal articulation is something that is what's the word? So not understandable, because it exists at such a different frequency.
I think for those listening, when it comes to that, I remember when I first started getting to this kind of stuff back in 2013 or 12, and I thought to myself, "Oh, non-attachment. It's going to get me what I want. It's going to get me success, or get me this, or allow me to be more confident, or less social anxiety." And um, as I went along, I realized that the attachment to the word non-attachment was me. It was still being attached to something, and then also at the same time, when I got through that, then I felt like, oh, non-attachment is just like this cold place where I don't care about anything, and I become like heartless and like kind of in a weird way. Like, and again, these are my projections, right? Like you can hear it in
Yeah.
my voice, just projecting, projecting, projecting. So I wanted to say to people out there listening that like, and for me, like, I'm nowhere close to where I want to be as far as no, actually, no, I am where I want to be, I'm not in
Good
line to
correction.
keep it simple. I'm not in line, but I've had many satori experiences, and like you said, I remember in 2015, I did Joe Dispenza's meditation. That was my first little one, and I was laying on the bed, and I floated up on top of the bed, and it felt like I was like 30, maybe even a meter above the bed. I'm just like floating
Mm.
there, just like giggling to myself, like, just like laughing, and then a year later, I was reading Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, on my phone on Kindle or on iBooks or something, and I was sitting on the train. I read a passage. I can't remember what it was, but I read a passage. I remember looking up and I remember seeing people on the train, and everyone on the train is very miserable, and especially in Sydney, they're just like, it's in the morning, people are going to work.
Mhm.
I remember seeing like everyone had like this duality of like good and bad in them, and people were sad and happy at the same time. And I almost like felt pulsations from every person on the train, like this weird pulsation. And I looked outside on the coal train tracks. I saw like it's like I was on DMT or something, but it was like the coal pieces were like glittering and the trees were glittering. I just started like giggling to myself and laughing, and that lasted about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I started to get really attached to that feeling. I'm like, I love this feeling. I have no anxiety. Like I'm just like floating around, laughing, like having fun. It's like this weird
Yes.
place I was in. Then I got attached to it, and then like really, then it went away. It was just like went zoop. Like damn it.
Well, that's why people get attached to psychedelics and plant medicine, right? Because it's like they're like, "Oh, I finally found a route into this feeling, which actually feels more at home for me than anything else," right? Those states of being are very natural for us humans. That it can then become an addiction or an attachment to that feeling state. So it is interesting. You did mention something I wanted to elaborate on, and I can't remember what the segue was now.
Feel free
No,
to think about it for a second. The
yeah, I
correction
can't
was
remember.
it the correction?
No, it was before that. But that being said as well, like, let's talk about that, because that is one of the biggest causes of human suffering, is people thinking that they should be somewhere else than where they are right now. It is so incredibly hard for a human to just admit that they are perfect as they are right now in this moment. It is so hard for a human to admit that this present moment is all that they need. It's insane how people are so used to projecting themselves into the future. And I'm not making that wrong, making that bad. I think it's just human nature. But this is what's really
Observation.
interesting. Yeah, but this is what's really interesting, and I said this to a girlfriend the other day, is she was like, she was in quite a bad state. She was in a very negative state. She was in like a shame hole. And she was just like, I know that, I'm worried what I'm going to be creating for my future because I feel like I can't get out of this feeling state. So obviously, firstly, I'm like, well, the feeling of needing to get out of it is avoiding it. So if you're trying to rush the clarity of something, rush the understanding, rush the change of emotional state, you're not being present with it. So you're actually creating more resistance. And that resistance is just going to persist. And then you're going to feel like you're locked in there for forever. So the more that you can be present and lean into the present moment, you actually move through things quicker. It's very ironic. And I love that. But the other thing I said to her was like, remember that we live in a world of magic and pure potentiality, right? So you're currently anticipating what you're going to create for your future based off your current set point. If you change your current set point, you can change your future like that. Magic can happen in the next minute. Magic can happen tomorrow. It's completely pure potentiality. We're not there yet. So when you can actually be okay exactly where you are right now, what happens in that moment is you release attachment that you need to be somewhere else than where you are right now. So it actually releases the resistance that you're holding in between where you are and where you want to be. When you release that resistance, you clean your energy. So you have more of a clean vibration, which means that from that place, you are creating a different future in the now. So I think, like, again, it's logical sense. Does it not make logical sense to be present in the moment because you know that by doing so, you're going to change the set point of your future? But if you're stressing about the future, then you're creating a stressful future.
It's
Like,
profound.
so yeah, so I see it very logically like that. So that's really interesting. And I think on that note, this is where people, I think, really confuse perfectionism with expectation. I believe that everything is perfect. Right now, everything is perfect. When people say, like, oh, I'm not perfect, I'm like, why would you even say that? You are an absolute walking miracle on legs. You are absolutely perfection right now. So I always say to people, it's not perfection that's hurting you, it's expectation. It's a fact that you have an expectation of what perfect should be, as if perfect is something other than what you are right now. That's what creates disappointment. That's what creates shame and the feeling of failure, or the feeling like I should be further along than where I am right now, like in my job or relationship or success in general, is expectation. It's an ideal that you've projected for yourself more often than not based off of wounding of where you think you need to be validated for your existence. When you release the expectation and you realize that right now you are exactly where you need to be and everything is perfect, even when you're feeling shit, when you're feeling high, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling ecstatic, whatever it is perfect because it is human. And whenever you make a feeling wrong or bad, that is when you stay in it. When you accept it for what it is, and when you welcome that emotion, you welcome that experience, you welcome that physical sensation, whatever it is, it's actually doing the opposite of what feels most familiar, but that is actually what helps you transcend it. If you're not accepting it, you're not transcending it. You're actually staying stuck in it.
Thanks for watching this clip of the Getting Mental podcast. If you like this clip, check out the full episode here or more clips here.